Start your day with SubhanAllah, respected brothers and sisters. Every morning we awaken is a new opportunity from Allah SWT, a fresh page to fill with goodness, gratitude and devotion. But how often do we reflect on how we begin this gift of? It prevents assumptions from turning into accusations against the divine. There is no greater comfort for a heart burdened with grief, stress, or confusion than the knowledge that the one who controls its life is absolutely, eternally, unquestionably perfect. SubhanAllah brings this comfort in the most direct way. When you whisper these words upon rising from sleep, you are not only glorifying your Lord, you are soothing your own soul. You are reminding your heart that it does not need to carry the weight of the world. It only needs to turn toward the one who carries all burdens and does so with perfect justice, perfect mercy, and perfect wisdom. In this way, SubhanAllah is not simply a phrase of worship. It is a form of therapy for the soul. It is a treatment for spiritual fatigue. It is a protection against despair. It is a seed of peace planted deep in the soil of faith. When said with awareness, it reshapes the emotional and psychological landscape of the believer. The same events that would crush someone else, disappointment, delay, failure, are absorbed by the heart that remembers a SubhanAllah and transformed into stepping stones toward deeper submission. SubhanAllah is also a recognition of Allah's transcendence. He is not like His creation. He does not resemble anything or anyone in existence. All that is in creation is subject to weakness, ignorance, change, and death. But Allah is exalted above all that. His knowledge is eternal, not learned. His power is inherent, not acquired. His mercy is infinite, not conditional. His decisions are not based on trial and error, nor are they reactive to events. They emerge from timeless wisdom. When a believer says, SubhanAllah, they are affirming all of this, even if they cannot articulate it fully. They are declaring that Allah is far beyond the flaws of anything they have ever seen, felt, or known. And this remembrance is not just for the good times. In fact, it is often in pain that a SubhanAllah becomes most meaningful. In the story of Prophet Yunus, Arabic in, Arabica, Arabica, Arabica lif, Arabicam, Arabic sin, Arabic lam, Arabic alif, Arabic meme, we find him trapped in darkness, the darkness of night, the darkness of the ocean, and the darkness of the belly of the whale. Yet in that moment, what did he say? Allah ilaha ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kantu mina as-salimin. Glory be to you. Indeed, I was of the wrongdoers. He glorified Allah even while trapped. He didn't accuse his Lord. He didn't ask, why did you allow this? Instead, he said, you are perfect. I am the one who is flawed. And through that one utterance, Allah saved him. In this is a lesson for every believer. When you are surrounded by darkness, say, SubhanAllah. When you are overwhelmed, say, SubhanAllah. When you cannot see the way forward, say, SubhanAllah. Not because your circumstances are good, but because your Lord is perfect, and He is in control. To begin the day with the SubhanAllah is also to begin with humility. The believer admits, I don't know everything. I don't control everything. I will make mistakes today. But my Lord will not. It's an act of surrender, not in defeat, but in dignity. Because what could be more dignified than placing your trust in the one whose every attribute is free from flaw? The modern world celebrates self-reliance, independence, and perfectionism, all of which burden the soul with pressure. But Islam teaches, begin your day not by relying on yourself, but by glorifying the one who never fails. Say, SubhanAllah, and let His perfection carry your imperfection. That is the path of true peace. Even in success, SubhanAllah guards the believer from arrogance. It is a reminder that the outcome did not come from one's own brilliance alone. It came from a Lord who facilitated it, who allowed every step, who guided unseen factors in one's favor. When one succeeds and says, SubhanAllah, they are saying, this achievement is a sign of Allah's perfect generosity, not my own worth, that protects the soul from pride and preserves gratitude in the heart, in the rhythm of daily life. SubhanAllah serves as a pause, a moment to step out of the rush and remember the eternal. Whether you say it quietly before breakfast, whisper it while tying your shoes, or reflect on it during your commute, each time you say it, you are reconnecting with the truth that sustains the universe. Allah is perfect. I am not, but I am safe with Him. This phrase also reshapes relationships. For how can one feel proud when they remember that all greatness belongs to Allah? How can one boast when they acknowledge that every good trait they possess, intellect, beauty, strength, wealth, eloquence, status, is not truly their own, but a loan from the Creator who is perfect and without equal? To glorify Allah is to admit consciously and repeatedly that perfection is not ours. We are forgetful. Allah is all-knowing. We are weak. Allah is all-powerful. We are sinful. Allah is most merciful. We are dependent on countless factors outside our control just to survive each day. The functioning of our hearts, the air we breathe, the safety we take for granted, while Allah is free of all needs, eternally self-sufficient. When one begins their day with this awareness, they walk through life differently. They are no longer consumed with asserting their own greatness or demanding recognition. They are no longer enslaved by their egos or the praise of others. They are content in knowing their role, not to be glorified, but to glorify. Furthermore, the constant repetition of a SubhanAllah helps to recalibrate the heart's spiritual compass. It reminds us not only of our need for Allah, but also of our place in His creation. In a world that often celebrates self-promotion, confidence bordering on arrogance, and the relentless pursuit of status, the believer who begins the day with a SubhanAllah takes a different path. They reject the worship of the self. They reject the illusion that they are in control. They start from the premise that their existence itself is a sign of Allah's mercy, not their own merit. This recognition humbles the soul, extinguishes pride, and replaces it with a profound sense of gratitude. That gratitude, in turn, feeds humility even more. The one who says a SubhanAllah does not take blessings for granted. They know that their health, their intelligence, their opportunities, their faith, none of these are guarantees. They are gifts from a perfect Lord to a flawed servant. And because of this, the heart becomes more tender, more receptive to divine guidance, and more forgiving of others. It ceases to look down on those who have less or who struggle, because it knows that every advantage is a test and every difficulty a hidden mercy. The glorifier of Allah does not elevate himself above others, because he knows that true elevation belongs only to the one who is above all creation. The humility that stems from a SubhanAllah also protects a person from many of the spiritual traps that destroy deeds. One of the most dangerous of these traps is Riya, showing off in acts of worship. A person might fast, pray, or give charity not for Allah, but to impress others or gain respect. But a heart that is trained to glorify Allah's perfection becomes disgusted with the idea of seeking praise for itself. How can a servant who knows their own weakness compete with the perfection of Allah? How can a person who says a SubhanAllah ever believe that their good deeds are flawless? Rather, they perform acts of worship with humility, fear, and hope, fearing that their deeds may not be accepted and hoping for mercy from the one who alone deserves praise. In this way, SubhanAllah becomes a form of spiritual purification. It scrapes away the rust of pride. It polishes the mirror of the heart until it begins to reflect light, sincerity, and truth. It helps the believer to see the world through the lens of submission. No longer is success a reason for pride, nor is failure a reason for despair. Everything is reinterpreted through the glorification of Allah. Success is a gift, failure is a test, ease is a blessing, hardship is a pathway to nearness. All of it is part of the perfect wisdom of the perfect Lord. Even emotionally, the person who says the SubhanAllah develops a beautiful kind of resilience. Arrogant people are fragile. They cannot accept criticism. They crumble when things don't go their way. They lash out when their image is threatened. But the humble believer who glorifies Allah and knows their own limits becomes emotionally balanced. They accept feedback. They seek to improve. They are not obsessed with reputation or praise. They are less defensive. They apologize when wrong. They forgive more easily. They don't carry bitterness because they don't place themselves at the center of every story. Instead, they place Allah at the center, and that changes everything. This humility even affects how we speak. The arrogant tongue is quick to insult, quick to judge, and slow to admit error. But the tongue that begins the day with SubhanAllah becomes restrained. It avoids mocking others. It avoids harshness. It avoids claiming things it cannot guarantee. Why? Because the speaker knows that every word is being recorded and that their own knowledge and judgment are incomplete. This tongue has been tamed by remembrance, and its silence is often more powerful than its speech. Moreover, humility beautifies worship. When we say a Subhana Rabbiyal Azim in Ruk or a Subhana Rabbiyal Allah in Sujud, we are not just stating facts, we are bowing and prostrating in awe of divine perfection. The more we say Subhanallah, the deeper our bow becomes, not just physically but spiritually. We lower ourselves in prayer because our hearts have already been lowered through glorification. And when that humility is present in worship, it brings sincerity, tears, and transformation. The prayer becomes not a habit, but a home. Finally, we must understand that humility is not only a virtue, it is the path to paradise. The Prophet taught us that the one who humbles himself for the sake of Allah will be raised in rank. And what greater act of humility than to begin every single day by declaring, I am nothing without you, Ya Allah. You are perfect, I am not. You are majestic, I am your servant. You are independent, I am in need. These are not the words of a weak person. They are the words of someone who has understood reality. They are the words of someone who has tasted the sweetness of surrender. They are the words of a believer whose pride has died and whose heart has come to life. SubhanAllah, the phrase that humbles the arrogant, softens the hard-hearted, elevates the lowly, and transforms the believer into a true servant of the Most High. To say SubhanAllah is to speak in unison with the universe. It is to awaken the heart to a cosmic reality in which every atom is engaged in the praise of the Creator. When a believer begins their day by uttering this sacred phrase, they are not merely performing a ritual or speaking out of habit. They are reconnecting themselves to the grand orchestra of creation, all of which is engaged in a continuous act of glorifying Allah. Allah in the Quran declares, the seven heavens and the earth and whatever is in them exalt Him. And there is not a thing except that it exalts Allah with His praise, but you do not understand their way of exalting. Surah Al-Isra 1744. This verse is a spiritual revelation. It informs the human heart that it is surrounded at all times by a universe that lives in a state of remembrance. The skies above, layered in unimaginable heights. The stars burning millions of miles away. The earth firm beneath our feet. The oceans in their depth and rhythm. The trees in their stillness and shade. The birds that take flight at dawn. All of them are engaged in tasbih. Each particle of creation knows its creator and fulfills its purpose in glorifying Him. The sun rises by His permission and sets by His will. The moon waxes and wanes in perfect time according to His divine order. When you say SubhanAllah, you are not alone. You are joining this universal choir of remembrance. You are placing your voice, your soul, your intention in harmony with the heartbeat of existence. SubhanAllah is more than glorification. It is a declaration that Allah is far above and free from any imperfection, flaw, weakness, injustice, or deficiency. When you speak these words at the break of day, your soul is reoriented. It lifts itself from the narrow distractions of the material world and enters into a state of awe. It sheds the dust of ego, of stress, of false control. You are no longer just a person rushing into another day of tasks and responsibilities. You are a servant of the Lord of the worlds, waking up under a sky that glorifies Him, walking on an earth that bows to Him, breathing air that exists only because He has willed it. This connection is not metaphorical, it is real. Allah has made the entire universe alive with remembrance. Everything, from the thunder that roars in the heavens to the silent movement of an ant beneath a leaf, is engaged in glorifying Him. And human beings, the crown of creation, have been given something unique, the gift of choice. We were given the freedom to remember or to forget, to glorify or to ignore. And so when a human being chooses to begin their day with the SubhanAllah, they are fulfilling the very reason for which they were created. They are reconnecting with the truth that everything around them has never stopped affirming that Allah is perfect and exalted beyond all comprehension. This perspective radically transforms how one experiences the world. The sky is no longer just blue. It becomes a canopy stretched in divine artistry, suspended without pillars. The trees are no longer just wood and leaves. They are testifying in silence to the greatness of their Creator. The mountains are no longer just geological formations. They are ancient worshippers of Allah who stood firm when others fled. The rain is no longer an accident of climate. It is a divine mercy descending in droplets, each one obeying its course. SubhanAllah opens the eyes of the soul. It allows a person to walk through the world not as a consumer or observer, but as a witness and participant in divine praise. There is great spiritual power in this awareness. It elevates the believer's perception and softens their heart. A person who says SubhanAllah regularly begins to see everything as a sign, a verse of creation, pointing back to the perfection of the one who made it. This is the Quranic worldview, to see every leaf, every breeze, every season, every change as a reflection of divine will. The birds that sing in the morning, the clouds that drift across the sky, the stars that twinkle in the distance, they all become reminders of Allah's majesty. And you, as a human being who can speak and feel and choose, are invited to respond not with silence but with reverent awe. SubhanAllah, how perfect is my Lord! This response does something powerful within the human heart. It breaks the illusion of self-importance. The modern world feeds the ego. It tells you that you are the center of the universe, that your desires define your truth, that your success measures your worth. But the one who begins the day with the SubhanAllah sees through this illusion. They realize that their role is not to control the world, but to live in surrender to the one who already controls it perfectly. They are not seeking domination over creation. They are seeking alignment with it. The universe is already glorifying Allah. When you say SubhanAllah, you are joining what is already in motion. You are realigning your soul with its original fitrah, the innate disposition to worship, to glorify, to submit. This brings profound peace. The person who says SubhanAllah does not feel isolated in their praise. They feel accompanied by the wind, the sea, the stars, the animals, the trees, all whispering the same glorification in languages only Allah understands. And what is more, you begin to feel deeply rooted in the earth, yet spiritually connected to the heavens. Your praise transcends your own limitations. It becomes a link between the seen and the unseen, between your heart and the throne of Allah. SubhanAllah also reshapes how you handle life's hardships. When you see creation as glorifying Allah despite storms, droughts, and disasters, you realize that tasbih is not only for moments of beauty, it is also for moments of trial. The tree that loses its leaves still stands. The sun that is hidden by clouds still shines above them. The birds that lose their nests continue to sing. Likewise, the believer who faces sickness, poverty, grief, or difficulty says, SubhanAllah, I do not understand this moment, but I know that you are perfect in all that you do. This trust, born of cosmic alignment, allows the believer to walk through pain without losing sight of Allah's perfection. Moreover, SubhanAllah cultivates gratitude. When you realize that every part of creation is glorifying the same Lord who created and sustains you, your heart fills with appreciation. You begin to see everything, even the smallest joys, as blessings. The warmth of the sun, the freshness of the breeze, the shade of a tree, the whisper of rain. Steady? You begin to eat more mindfully, speak more respectfully, walk more humbly. You see the world as an ongoing miracle and your place in it as sacred. Your heart no longer feels entitled, but indebted to the mercy of the one who grants it all. No. The spiritual discipline of starting the day with a SubhanAllah plants seeds of consciousness that grow throughout the hours that follow. The remembrance echoes in your work, in your conversations, in your thoughts. When the ego rises, SubhanAllah brings it back down. When impatience strikes, SubhanAllah brings calm. When success arrives, SubhanAllah reminds you that the credit belongs to Allah. When fear takes hold, SubhanAllah reassures you that nothing happens without the will of the one who is perfect in knowledge and mercy. Even your physical environment becomes a reflection of this awareness. A room filled with tasbih becomes spiritually lighter. A home in which Allah is glorified becomes more peaceful. A heart that repeats a SubhanAllah becomes a vessel of light. The angels are drawn to places where Allah is remembered. The Prophet, let's face it, no people gather to remember Allah, but that the angels surround them. Mercy covers them, tranquility descends upon them, and Allah mentions them among those who are with Him. So imagine the reward and the peace that fills the heart of a person who begins their day with tasbih and sustains it throughout the day. In the end, a SubhanAllah is not just an act of remembrance, it is a return home. A return to the original state of the soul, which was created to glorify its Lord. It is the act of stepping into the flow of creation and finding one's place not as a ruler of the earth, but as a servant of the one who created it. It is the quiet, powerful, constant declaration that Allah is perfect, and that this truth is the anchor of every moment, every breath, every being. SubhanAllah, glory be to you, O Allah. You are the master of the heavens and the earth. You are glorified by every raindrop, every star, every grain of sand. And we, in our smallness, seek honor only by joining their praise. To begin your day with the SubhanAllah is to begin it with purification, not merely of the tongue, but of the soul, the heart, and the mind. In a world constantly pulling the human being toward distraction, materialism, comparison, and false priorities, the simple act of glorifying Allah is nothing short of revolutionary. SubhanAllah, which means Udkuri be to Allah or exalted is Allah, affirms that Allah is utterly free from all imperfection. This declaration, when spoken with consciousness, also becomes a silent protest against the illusions of the dunya, worldly life. It tells the soul, whatever else you chase, crave, or cling to, it is not perfect, it will never last, and it is not your purpose. Thus, from the very start of the day, the SubhanAllah becomes a means of spiritual detoxification, gently cleansing the heart of its misplaced affections and dangerous dependencies. The human heart, by its nature, was designed to attach. It cannot live in detachment. It must love something, hope in something, fear something, and desire something. The question, however, is not whether the heart will attach, but to what will it attach? For many people, the answer becomes the dunya, wealth, careers, relationships, appearance, approval, achievements, and comfort. The world offers an endless stream of temporary fulfillments that, while alluring on the surface, always come with anxiety, comparison, and eventual loss. These attachments harden the heart over time. They turn the soul into a slave to outcomes and people. But SubhanAllah, when spoken with reflection and repetition, begins the process of untangling the heart from these webs of illusion. It reminds the soul that perfection is only with Allah, and that everything else it clings to is fragile, flawed, and fleeting. When someone says SubhanAllah with depth, they are declaring, "O Allah, you are free from need, free from weakness, free from injustice. You are not like your creation. You are higher, purer, and eternally perfect." And by saying that, the believer acknowledges something else, that the dunya is not free from defect. It is full of uncertainty, imbalance, and temptation. No matter how many people praise it, no matter how beautiful it looks, the dunya is not the source of peace. It is not the goal. It is not the destination. The moment a believer realizes this truth with their heart, they begin to loosen their grip on worldly desires. This does not mean that they stop working, caring, or living among people. It means that they no longer give their heart away to what will never love them back in the same way that Allah does. It is one thing to know that the dunya is temporary. It is another thing entirely to feel it. SubhanAllah causes that feeling to grow. It places a lens before the heart, allowing the believer to see the world in its true light, as a passage, not a palace, a corridor, not a castle. Each morning that begins with SubhanAllah is like washing the face of the soul from the dust of yesterday's illusions. It helps the believer see things as they really are. The wealth they chase may provide comfort, but it will never provide fulfillment. The social approval they crave may bring temporary satisfaction, but not inner security. Even their own self-image, which they struggle so hard to maintain, will one day fade with age, weakness, and death. SubhanAllah liberates the believer from these internal prisons. It replaces vanity with humility, greed with contentment, and anxiety with submission. And this internal cleansing is not momentary, it is cumulative. Just as dust settles gradually, the desires of the dunya creep into the heart subtly over days, months, and years. The soul may not even notice that it has become more anxious, more attached, more consumed with appearances. But a SubhanAllah, recited daily and meaningfully, slowly scrapes away the crust of dunya from the heart's surface. It becomes a polish that returns the mirror of the soul to its original clarity, a state where it reflects only the love and awe of Allah.